Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Annie, this is Stanley, and we're here to talk about books. Today's video is going to be the next in my Reviews Revisited series, where I pick a book that I reviewed sometime since 2005 and don't really remember, reread it, and then compare my thoughts now to my original review. And today we're going to be talking about The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie by Muriel Spark. But first of all, let's make some tea. So, what does the tea dye have in store for me today? 6 green melon and pineapple. Oh, that's a good one. It's a good one for this teapot as well, because the leaves are quite big and it's got pieces of fruit in it, so they're less likely to come out of the spout, because I don't have an infuser tray for this teapot. This is one of my newer flavours that I've been trying out. It's been very successful so far. Good old past me has already boiled the kettle. There we go. I do love melon flavoured tea. There's not a lot of it around, so I was very pleased to find this. Green melon and pineapple. Lovely stuff. So now that we've got our tea, which is always an important, an important accompaniment to reading, in my view, let's talk about what I remember of The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, which is absolutely nothing. So my husband Dave went on a trip to Edinburgh not so long ago to visit a friend of ours who lives there, and he ended up staying rather longer than he originally intended and didn't take enough reading material. So she lent him this book to read on the train on the way home. And he came home and he said, "This book is amazing, you should read it." And I was like, I recognise the title and the name of the author, but I'm pretty sure I've never read it. And then I thought, maybe I have. And so I looked it up on my reviews spreadsheet, and it was a very long time ago. I can't quite remember now, but it was well over 15 years ago, I think, that I originally read this book. I remember absolutely nothing about it at all, so I'm going into this completely blind. It's not going to take very long because it's pretty short, so we may not do a mid-book thoughts section, but I'll see how it goes. Anyway, so that's all I remember, nothing at all. But Dave loved it, so that's always really interesting, because we don't always like the same books, and I wouldn't have said that this was the kind of book that he would be into, but there you go. So maybe I'll have a chat with him and give his thoughts as well once I've had mine. So yes, I'm going to go and get started and either come back when I'm halfway through, which isn't going to take very long, or when I've actually finished it, and let you know what my thoughts are. So I am back after having finished The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie by Muriel Spark. I have not done my halfway point update because it was very short, so I didn't think it was worth it. But I have brought along my husband Dave, because he was the one who prompted me to read it in the first place. So we're going to do like a little mini episode of our podcast, Will You Still Love It Tomorrow?, where we talk about things that one or other of us has seen or read and that the other one hasn't, and then we come together to discuss our reactions, obviously, after the other one has then consumed the media. Anyway, why did you suggest that I read this book?
So I was surprised by this book in a number of ways. First of all, it's much shorter than I thought it was going to be. And it was about a very different plot than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be about a young woman teacher who was going to be, inspirational in the best tradition of the sort of Enid Blyton-esque boarding school books. And it is not like that at all.
Okay, that was not remotely an answer to my question, but that's fine.
That's a good point.
So,
I mean, okay, why did I want you to read it?
Well, you went to Edinburgh, and you were visiting a friend of ours, and you stayed rather longer than you'd intended and finished your current book and borrowed this from her.
Mm-hmm.
Did she recommend it to you, or did you just pull it off the shelf randomly?
No, I just randomly picked some books off her shelf while I was there to read. I'd heard of it a long time ago. I didn't really know anything about it. I thought I would give it a go. I thought I might finish it while I was there and give it back, which I didn't. But going back to reasons why I wanted you to read it, it's got a very odd writing style.
Yeah.
In which the author writes little individual sentences which are like little mini flash forwards of what's going to happen to the characters.
Well, it's usually like a half page to a couple of pages flash forwards. But yes, so basically, it was published in 1961, and it's set in the first half of the 1930s. And as you said, it's about a teacher, but she is in her late 30s to early 40s over the course of the book, I think.
She's in her prime.
She's in her prime. She says that a lot. And it's about, she kind of takes in hand sort of a few of the students in her junior school class when they're about 10, and starts kind of inviting them around for tea and taking them to museums. But she's a terrible teacher, even regardless of that. And she only kind of talks about her own life and praises Mussolini and Hitler for their organizational abilities, and doesn't actually teach anything. She puts things up on the board like a maths problem when she's meant to be teaching maths, just in case someone else comes into the classroom and that kind of thing. And she's completely obsessed with herself and her prime and her own agenda, I guess. And I think would you say that her main purpose is to try and be important by influencing the girls?
I mean, maybe. I don't think that's necessarily my takeaway. I think my takeaway is that she feels it's incredibly important to mold a small number of people into being the right kind of person. I think it's really interesting because there was a formative teacher in my life who gave me most of what I would consider to be my political education.
Okay.
When I was at secondary school, and I think spent quite a long time talking about politics rather than chemistry, like you probably should have been doing. And that was in some ways, kind of Miss Brodie-esque kind of character, but in some ways, she's a little bit of a cult leader because she not only says to the young people that are in her set that you should think this way and you should like these things, but she also makes quite a lot of effort to cut them off from other people.
Yes, that's very true. Yes. It's interesting because she says over and over again, one of the main things that categorizes the novel is, as you said, that there are these weird flash forwards that tell you what happens to various of the characters quite far in the future, which gradually kind of build up to a picture of Miss Brodie's ultimate fate. But where was I going with this? The other thing that characterizes it is that there are lots of phrases that are just repeated over and over and over again. And one of them is that she is in her prime, and it is about the prime of Miss Jean Brodie. But then there's also these little kind of characterized snippets about each of the girls, because there are 6 girls in the Brodie set who are described at the beginning as knowing very little that relates to the authorized curriculum and being of no use to the school as a school, which is how the headmistress describes them. And they're all famous for something. But I got the impression as the book went on that was something that Miss Brodie had kind of assigned to them.
Yes.
But every time one of them, I was confused to begin with, because they're all introduced, all 6 of them are introduced in the same page with these little characteristic things that they're supposedly famous for in the school.
They will be famous for later on, mostly, rather than
ish. But I was like, oh God, how am I ever going to be able to remember who any of them are and separate them from each other? But those things get repeated pretty much every single time they're mentioned. So there's lots of little things that are repeated over and over and over again that kind of cement things into your brain. And I think one of the things that surprised me about it, having been published in the very early 60s and being about the 1930s, is that there's an awful lot about sex in this book. And one of the girls at the age of 16, Rose, is described as being famous for sex. Not that she has it, She doesn't actually have sex with anybody in the book, I don't think.
No.
But yeah, I found that a little bit weird and a little bit unsettling.
So just to be clear, when you say that there's a lot of sex in this book, very, very few people are
There's a lot about sex.
having sex in this book. There's a lot of talking about sex in this book, which is interesting.
Yeah, the girls start out when they're 10 and they are kind of obsessed with sex, it seems to me. But it is actually weirdly, well, not weirdly at all, actually. I don't know what I'm talking about. It is a very accurate portrayal, I would say, of tween girls being obsessed with the private lives of their teachers and speculating wildly about them as people, because you never get to know anything really about the private lives of your teachers, but they are people that you have a lot of contact with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, what girls do really. But two of the girls, I think it's Jenny and Sandy, isn't it, who write the stories.
Yeah.
And they write very overblown romance stories that later in the book involve Miss Brodie and one of the male teachers. There are only two male teachers in the school. Both of them behave inappropriately towards the girls, whilst also supposedly both being obsessed with Miss Brodie, which is kind of weird and also a little bit unsettling. What else did we want to talk about?
Well, I'm looking forward to watching the film, partly because...
Yes, Maggie Smith, 1969.
Yes, partly because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, viewers, but I think she won the Oscar for Best Actor for it, I think.
I don't know.
But also because, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Wikipedia page says that the film was essentially told with her as the protagonist, and she's very much not the protagonist in the book.
No.
She's talked about constantly.
She's the object of the book.
Yes.
But she's not the subject of the book.
She's very rarely actually speaking in the book.
And you also don't get her perspective. It's largely told from Sandy's perspective, with some of the other girls getting a look in every now and then. But the interiority of Miss Brodie is
totally absent.
Almost totally absent, which I think is really interesting, because there's a line in the book which is Sandy saying that it seemed as though Miss Brodie had changed quite a lot at one point, but she wasn't sure whether the complexities had occurred within Miss Brodie or whether it was her perception of Miss Brodie that had changed.
Really,
and I wonder, I mean, obviously you do get various different people's views, and you have her actually talking to the girls and little clips of her lessons and things that she tells them. But I wonder how much the presentation of Miss Brodie can be taken as accurate, because it is filtered almost directly through the eyes of 10 to 16-year-old girls who don't really know her as an actual person and speculate wildly about her love life and various other things that have happened to her. So I think it's not an unreliable narrator so much as it's a character who is seen only from the outside through the lens of a particular group of people.
Which is why watching the film will be really interesting, because as everybody knows, when you read a book, you get to build an impression in your head of what the world is like and what the people are like.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're watching a film, you're given something and told this is what it is, and you are watching and listening to that thing occurring.
Yes.
And so you get an opinion of the writer and the director as to what it's all about, which is quite different to doing this. So I think the fact that it's notionally about somebody without them actually being in it very much. And I think the things about the writing style, so the repetition and the flash forwards and the slightly strange way that it's written, is what makes it really interesting. It also has the bonus of being really short.
Yes, although it did take me longer to read than I thought it would. I know you said that you could only read it sort of 40 pages at a time. I sat down a couple of days ago and I thought, I'm just going to breeze through this in a couple of hours. It took me 3 days to read this, and I had to keep stopping I think I read 40 pages in each sitting, because it is about 120 pages long. So yeah, you're not wrong.
It gives you a lot to think about while you're reading. I kept having to stop and think about the some of Miss Brodie's political opinions, some of the attitudes to relationships and sex that the characters have, some of the interesting things about how the girls' lives develop both during and after the story, because you get some flash forwards after the story's finished. I thought all that was really interesting.
Yeah, and it is interesting what you said about the film adaptation, because one of our recent podcast episodes was about Tipping the Velvet, where I read the book and then we watched the TV show, which I had seen before. And one of the characters I thought was presented quite differently, purely because in the book it's a first person narrative from one character's point of view, so you only get to see that character through the narrator's eyes, whereas when you're watching the TV show you get to see her as a person yourself from the outside, without being wholly influenced by the narrator's viewpoint. So again, I think you're right. But yeah, I think this was really interesting, but I'm not sure that that's necessarily the same thing as enjoyable in this case.
Oh, difficult to say.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't dislike reading it, but I don't think I would say I loved it, but I did find it very interesting.
I would recommend it, definitely, not necessarily because it is enjoyable, which is a difficult word to use in context with this, but because it's very good at sparking lots of really interesting conversations.
Spark. Hey, see what you did there. So I'm going to give it 3.5. What would you give it?
Oh gosh, you're asking me for a thing.
Yeah. Putting you on the spot.
I mean,
pick a number, 1 to 5.
3.
Okay. So now I'm going to have a look at my review from whenever it is that I read it before. If you had asked me, I think when you gave it to me, actually, when you had finished reading it, I looked at it and said, oh, I recognize the title, but I've never read it. And then I looked it up and I had. So I had no memory of it before this time of reading it. So let's see what my original review says. Thank you, Stanley, for holding the laptop all that time. So it turns out that it was February 2008. So it is a while ago. So it's understandable that I don't remember it. And it says, a while ago, Dave sent me an article about characterization in fiction, which was really interesting. In it, one particular fictional character was mentioned over and over again, and it was someone from a book I'd never heard of, The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie by Muriel Spark. So it was you that prompted me reading it in the first place. So you've prompted me to read this book twice. Intrigued, I ordered the book and read it last night and this morning. It's an odd book about a teacher who tells her students stories about her life and the world rather than teaching them maths and grammar. It's quirky and rather strange, but intriguing and thought-provoking. The plot is about the revealing of which girl it was who betrayed Miss Brodie to the headmistress and caused her to be forced into retirement. The structure is very effective in that it tells the story of the girls' years under Miss Brodie's instruction, interspersed with flashes forward to what happens to all of them in later life. Thus, it builds the story like a jumbled jigsaw, and it's very cleverly put together. It's about growing up and the way in which people's opinions about things change over time, and how people influence you when you are young. Slightly odd, but very good. So yeah, pretty good summary there of all of the things that we said. So evidently I thought very similar things last time. So, okay, I think that's it, unless you've got anything else to add at this point.
No, thank you for inviting me onto your show.
Oh, thank you for coming. So yes, I hope you have enjoyed this slightly different format of Reviews Revisited. Oh, what am I doing next month? I actually have no idea, but if I have figured it out by the time I edit this video, I will put the cover of the book over Dave's face. Okay, so, sorry, Stanley. Oh, God, it's all going wrong. Okay, so please join me for my next video very soon, and perhaps Dave might visit again sometime in the future. Bye for now.